Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Way back in the mists of history, back in the primeval days of 2017, I found this rifle right here. Although it didn't look quite like this. This, ladies and gentlemen, is not a No.5 Mk.1. Rather, this is a No.4 Mk.1 Lee Enfield rifle. Now, I found this at a hawk shop for a grand total of $150. It didn't have a scope, but it did have a scope mount, and the wood was beat up and the metal was beat up, but me and my grandfather were able to fix this thing up and make it look really, really nice. I did a series of videos detailing the refinishing of this rifle, and I even did a first shots many years after the rifle had actually been refinished. You see, I ran into a rather annoying issue that I didn't really know was even an issue until I kind of lucked out and found it by accident. In short, the ammo that I purchased for this rifle, keyholed. Bad. And so, I never knew why I wasn't hitting with this thing. It wouldn't be until 2018 when I got some of this. This is 150 grain PPU soft point 303 British ammo. And this does not keyhole. I took that out to the range and got some really good hits at 50 yards with like 9 rounds. And then there was a ceasefire, and I just said forget it that day because earlier on I'd been shooting a lot of that keyholing ammo and was pretty frustrated. Well, finally, in the space year 2021, I've been able to take this thing out again with a fairly decent scope, a 3x9 Tasco. Yeah, it's a cheapo, but I bought this back when I was broke, and I just haven't seen fit to replace it yet. I took out 50 cartridges, although I ended up shooting something like 35 because, well, ammo is not exactly cheap anymore. And I finally put this bloody thing through its paces. Now, if no one wants to be bothered by looking at the previous video of this, where I go through its history and development, I'll give a truncated version here. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's the late 1800s. Repeating rifles are all the rage, and the British decide to adopt a bolt-action rifle. Not this. The Lee Enfield from that time period was actually the Lee Metford, also known as the Long Lee. It was a black powder rifle that used a bottlenose cartridge, so it would not have been this particular cartridge here. Over time, that design would be refined. Metford rifling would be replaced with Enfield rifling. And the reason they had to do that is because nitrocellulose, or smokeless powder, was invented. That would erode the Metford rifling fairly fast, although not as fast as you might think. I think it eroded it in something like 3,000 rounds. Enfield rifling lasted a lot longer, and so you would have the Lee Enfield. Now, this, of course, was still not the Lee Enfield that we have today. Basically, you'd see a lot of different developments up through the First World War, and then finally, in the 1940s, we would get this. This is a No.4 Mk.1, or rifle No.4 Mk.1. The Lee Enfield rifle that this shirt shows is actually a rifle No.3 Mk.1. Although back in World War I, it was just simply referred to as the short magazine Lee Enfield. So with all that in mind, what we have here is a wartime expediency rifle that happens to be better than the non-wartime expediency rifle. The receiver is a lot stronger, but also a lot simpler. And also, it has a rear-mounted aperture sight, which is easily replaced with a scope mount. Now, what we have here is an example of one of probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Sporterized Rifle No.4 Mk.1s. Used to be these things were very, very inexpensive, and Sporterized versions are very inexpensive. What people would do is they would chop down the front wood and make it into a fairly adequate, or very good actually, hunting rifle, although I've not hunted with this particular rifle. It also had the benefit of making them look really, really cool, as this is a very fetching little rifle. I don't really recommend sporterizing rifles, but I do recommend buying good sporter rifles, because as we're about to see, this thing is damn good. So with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take this out. We're going to shoot it at the 50-yard range yet again, mainly due to limited ammo sources. I may have a good amount of 303 British ammo that actually doesn't suck, but if I shoot it up all the first day, well, I'm not going to have it for very long now, am I? Today, as I said earlier, we're going to be shooting something like 35 of these 150 grain PPU soft point cartridges. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's load up the old Warhorse and see what we can do with it.
That's a bolt action. You gotta work the bolt.
This rifle here has a well-deserved reputation for accuracy. This thing is really bloody accurate with proper ammunition. With crappy ammo, you're not going to hit the broadside of a barn with the door closed. This scope, despite being quite the cheapo, it gets the job done, although for some reason this was actually shooting high and to the left, and since I felt lazy, I just compensated by shooting low and to the right. And I was able to get really good hits on that very small target on the 50. I did get some rim lock, but I haven't shot this rifle nearly as much as I'm going to, so I still have to get used to loading it up. What I would sometimes do is I would sometimes load the magazine and then load the magazine into the rifle. This is not something that people actually did back in the day. What they would do is they would just use stripper clips, but seeing as I have a scope here, well, this isn't Wolfenstein 2009. I can't just load clips through the side. So yeah, one of the issues with loading it from the magazine and then popping the magazine into the loading the magazine and popping it into the rifle is the cartridge won't sit high enough, so you kind of got to mess with it to get it to pop up. Loading it through here, it's also easy to get rim lock, but whatever. It's with practice you can get it to work right. Now, there's two minor annoyances. Minor annoyance, the first is this right here. This is the safety. It goes up and it goes down. Unfortunately, this screw started to come loose. Now, I thought I had tightened it down with some Loctite, but evidently I didn't, or perhaps the Loctite wasn't any good, because as you can see, under recoil, it would sometimes flop back. I wonder how often that happened during both the First and Second World Wars, because that is kind of an Achilles heel to a degree if that gets loose. One other minor issue I had, now I forgot to wear my shooting gloves, but I probably should have, because I burnt my thumb, because when you're grabbing the rifle, it's very easy to accidentally touch that barrel. And that barrel gets hot after just one magazine, which is kind of annoying, but makes sense. I was very tempted to just go ahead and order some replacement wood from Liberty Tree Collectors, but to be honest, I still like the idea of using the old wood, and I can, practice to not touch the barrel. And also, I just like the way this thing looks sporterized. It just looks sexy. But there is a reason why they have those hand guards up there, because it is very easy to burn your hand on there. Now, since these were turned into inexpensive hunting rifles, quite likely an actual hunter would not shoot this nearly enough to get the barrel that hot. So I can see why nobody really complained about that all that much. And so, well, that's the Rifle No. 4 Mk.1. I'm going to do some more shooting with it at the 100, and then I'll probably get a review of this rifle out as soon as I can, although I have no idea when that's going to be, just because, well, there's so many other videos to do, and so many other guns to look at. But I have to say, after finally getting everything working on this rifle, getting the proper ammo, getting the scope more or less sighted in, this has since become my favorite bolt-action rifle. It kind of... In the K98K video, I said that was my most favorite rifle. I gotta say, or my most favorite bolt-action. I have to say this has kind of supplanted the K98K. I still love the K98K, but I like the ergonomics on this a little bit better. And the reason why I said the K98K was I liked it more was simply because I hadn't been able to hit anything with this bloody thing due to crap ammo. But I've always liked the Lee Enfield. Like, even before I really got into guns as much as I am today, this is the one bolt action I'd always wanted. In fact, many, many years ago, well, almost 2 decades, close to 2 decades ago, actually it's a little less than 2 decades, ugh, I'll figure out math later, when I went to get my very first bolt action rifle, which was the Mosin Nagant, I saw a Rifle No. 3 Mk.1 there, and it was only something like $40 more than I had, but, well, back then I was broke, so I wasn't able to get it, and ever since that time, I'd wanted one, and, it was worth the wait. This is a damn good rifle. If you can find yourself a already sporterized one, I would recommend popping a scope on there, and it's going to be a lot of fun to shoot. I'm looking forward to trying this out on the 100-yard line. Long story short, Rifle No. 4 Mk.1, awesome. And I'm General Lotz, wishing you good, smelly, rifle, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you this great content.